นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings. One of the good habits to get into as you practice Dhamma is to review, consider how your practice has been going, how it is going, whether you're moving towards your goal or away from it. Before you can even do that, you also have to remind yourself what the goal is. As people come into the Dhamma practice, meditation with different aspirations, different goals. But the Buddha set the goal as abandoning unwholesome dhammas rooted in greed, anger, delusion, cultivating wholesome dhammas, the path, sila, samadhi, panya, the Eightfold Path and all its factors, and purification of the mind, complete purification of one's mind. This is what all Buddhas teach. It's a phrase you've probably heard many times before. Well, that sets out what our goal is in the practice. And then from time to time we have to review our efforts towards that goal and what's going on, what we're actually experiencing. Because it's a path of practice. It's a way of practice. It's not simply something that we believe in. That may be a starting point, but we also have to practice this, abandoning the unwholesome, cultivating the wholesome, purifying the mind. That's to be put into action. But even just reviewing your efforts and reviewing how your practice is going can lead to problems, because nowadays we're so fixated on results and getting something back for the time and effort we put into any activity, whether it's work or recreation or anything. We're always kind of judging based on results, what I get from this, for my time, for my sacrifice, for my effort. As we know, this can be just as much an obstacle and a cause for unwholesome dhammas to arise in our mind as anything else. Being fixated on results, because if you keep thinking, when am I going to be peaceful? When will my mind let go of all this suffering, agitation, confusion? When will I have the peace, the bliss, the happiness? And then you also are setting yourself up to be disappointed. And also you may be missing things. One of the problems for practicing meditation and just practicing Dhamma in general that the Buddha pointed out is that we can practice with craving, wanting results. So that already sets up some stress or pressure in our mind. When will I get peaceful? When will I experience insight? When will this issue that's bothering me be over? So we're always coming back to look at the quality of our effort and what we need to do, the causes. As Ajahn Chah used to say, you want rice, you have to plant the rice. You have to go and get the rice seeds, germinate them, prepare them, and then you put them in the ground. Only thinking about when you're going to get the rice and what you're going to do with it, how much you'll get, how much you'll sell it for. You may give a cursory thought to that, but the important thing is, have you done the preparation? Have you ploughed your field? Have you planted the plants properly? And that's what you have to keep coming back to. That's where we need a lot of patience and stamina, because that part of the practice, the actual doing, the effort, it brings us to encounter some difficulties, problems. We get tired, we get frustrated. So of course we love to think of the results, we love to think of the bliss, we love to think of how good it will be. The same with anything in life. You go to work, you're thinking about earning your money, then what are you going to do with your money? What are you going to buy? Buy a house, go on holiday. But that's all in the future and it's all very unknown. It's just ideas. What you really need to do is do a good job first. We're always doing that, and that's what craving does to the mind. It makes us focus on what we're going to get rather than what we need to do. So part of our review is to come back and just see how much skillful effort we're developing and where our effort is directed. And it's fine to learn from mistakes as well. Sometimes we try too hard, sometimes we don't try at all. But we can learn from everything if we get into this habit of reviewing, observing what's going on, and aligning our effort with our goal. And it's quite possible if you still have a wrong understanding, a wrong grasp of the practice, that you could be sitting meditation and getting more and more angry or upset or frustrated. And it means you need to tweak or change an attitude, change something perhaps. Lots of desire heats you up, literally. It heats body and mind up with a lot of desire. So if you keep thinking about when you're going to get rid of this disturbed state of mind, this anger, this worry, this anxiety, whatever it is, if you keep thinking about the when will I get rid of it, when will it go, you just make yourself more unhappy. So not only do we have to be patient, but we also have to develop a certain contentment with the practice, trust in the Buddha and his teachings, and a willingness just to accept whatever's coming up in the mind and work with it, rather than fight against it and want to get rid of it, which may create further suffering. Also, we have to accept that many results in the practice come slowly and in small ways. Cumulative. You practice mindfulness, as I was saying earlier. It's drops of water into a jar. It may take a long time for the jar to fill up with water. But as long as you keep putting the drops in, making that effort, you can trust, well, eventually that jar will be full. And it may take time, and these small little efforts, or for the monk going on alms round, one person offers you a little bit of food. It may not be enough food for the whole of your day, but it's enough to start, and then you meet someone else and they give you a bit more food. Eventually you get a full bowl. Practice is like that. Your mind gradually fills up with the good stuff, the mindfulness, the effort, the sense of well-being, the kindness, compassion, and the wisdom and understanding. It's cumulative, little by little, and we learn partly from mistakes and things that go wrong, the suffering, and partly from the success. But you have to be willing to take the time and accept it may be only small steps towards your goal. The important thing is to go in the right direction. Not to give up, not to quit, and just to keep going in the right direction. If you notice yourself straying, well, to be able to teach yourself to come back to the path. So everything the Buddha taught us is doable for us as human beings. He said a number of times, I only teach you what you can practice. If it seems hard, that's partly the power of our accumulated karma from the past, our attachments and the way we are that we brought with us to the practice. It's also partly an attitude thing. If you keep telling yourself, "Oh, this is hard" or too hard, of course it will damage your motivation, your energy, and you might give up very easily. So it may be challenging and difficult to practice, but it's not so hard you can't do it. And you just have to accept small victories sometimes, but small victories practiced cumulatively can grow into bigger victories, and some things will become easier through the practice. If this is the first time you've kept the 8 precepts, it brings up doubts. Like some people have doubts about their health. If I don't eat a meal in the evening, am I going to just fade away? People ask this, will I die? Will I fade away? Some people have gastric issues, so they're worried about their rumbling tummy. Well, it's true. I mean, some people, they really have serious health issues, and the 8 precepts perhaps are not suitable. And so the 5 precepts are available as a kind of standard practice for daily life. But how can you know until you've tried the 8 precepts? Because some people, they say, I can't keep the 8 precepts for this reason, that reason. If you've never tried, you don't know. And sometimes you try, I think most people try it out and they find, it's easier, maybe more straightforward than you think. Ajahn Chah used to encourage this for lay people. Sometimes they had health issues and he would say, keep the 8 precepts for a week. Not forever, but just for a period of time. Try it for a week and see if things improve. And because they had faith in him and the effort that they required to keep the 8 precepts was very wholesome, and to be patient with whatever difficulties they had, sometimes they got very good results and their health issues actually abated or even disappeared through the power of the good karma they generated through keeping precepts. And it's a case-by-case thing. Sometimes the health issue is so much that, you can't keep the 8 precepts, you're too tired. But at least it's worth thinking about and trying sometimes. And even if you have gastric issues, or another one is people say, I can't not have an evening meal because I have to take medication. Well, monks also have face this question, and sometimes they just use what we call the medicinal allowables. They have fruit juice, they have cheese or something in the evening that they're allowed according to the Vinaya, and that can be enough for their medication to sort of settle the stomach. It's the same with getting up early in the morning. At first it's daunting to get up early to meditate. Some people say, I can't do that, I need my 8 hours of sleep. And maybe that's what they're used to. But if you've never tried, how do you know? The Buddha didn't say go without sleep completely. He just suggested getting up early so you have more quiet time to meditate before you go off and do other things in your day. Maybe a good practice, and he did that. And most meditation teachers will encourage you to get up a bit earlier than normal so that you can start your day mindfully without the pressure of time. We all know what it's like, sleeping in until the last moment and then rushing off to work or wherever you have to go. You can do it, but it's not such a good way to start your day, because you're in a rush. You miss things when you're in a rush. You're not so mindful. Your mind is often agitated. You don't have time to collect your thoughts, establish mindfulness, set up your goals, and bring your mind to a wholesome state, perhaps, because you're in a rush. If you get up a bit earlier, and then you have time to maybe recite a few verses of Dhamma, or listen to a Dhamma talk, meditate a bit, get your mind set in a wholesome state to start your day, and that can have an effect right through your day. Good effect. Ajahn Chah used to say, with sleep, best to just actually go to sleep mindfully. If you want to wake up mindfully and wake up and get up to practice in the morning, the most important thing is how you sleep, how you go to sleep. Just the state of mind before you go to sleep. Establish mindfulness before you go to sleep. Establish in your mind, when I wake up, I'll get up and practice. Pre-programming, you program your mind before you go to sleep, and that will have a huge impact on how you wake up and how you are when you wake up in the morning. The Buddha also encouraged us to practice metta, bhavana, cultivating loving kindness, compassion, before we go to sleep. Because when you're asleep, obviously you want to sleep in a relaxed way, really get the health benefits of sleeping. But if you practice metta, that helps you to be both relaxed and also have a more positive, wholesome state of mind. That will help you sleep better, be more relaxed, get the benefits. The devas will look after you while you're asleep, and you wake up with a more refreshed attitude. Maybe while you're asleep, you don't have so much restlessness, anxiety. Another problem that faces Dhamma practitioners, meditators, is sometimes we become complacent. Maybe you've been practicing for a while, you know the techniques, you can keep precepts, 5 precepts or 8 precepts. You've learned the chanting, you've heard a lot of Dhamma, you've listened to talks, maybe done many retreats. You've done enough for you to feel like you know enough of Dhamma. You've practiced generosity, offering dana, doing charity, volunteering, different things. You know how to help others. You're more at peace in yourself. You've developed some good karma in your life, but you become complacent and have the feeling, it's enough. And you hear people say this as well. They say, I don't have any suffering in my life. Yeah, I know how to help other people, help family. I know how to meditate. Yes, I've heard the Dhamma. I know everything's impermanent, not to attach to anything. They've reached a certain level in their practice. It's not new anymore, and they have done some good. But then the mind kind of goes to sleep again. It's reached a level where it says enough. But of course, you have to come back then to the goal. Am I still purifying my mind of greed, anger, and delusion? Do these things still arise? Maybe it's a refinement of mindfulness and then a refinement of wise reflection we need to bring into our practice to counter this. On the one hand, the Buddha said we do need to develop contentment. Contentment with the material wealth we can find, because we can waste a lot of time always trying to get richer, get more, until we're old and close to death, and then we say, I should practice Dhamma. It's a bit late then. So be careful not to get too obsessed with just seeking material wealth as an end in itself. And the Buddha encouraged us to practice contentment, but then that can flow on to just being content with our state of mind as well, our level of knowledge, understanding, the good we've done. And we think, well, I don't have any real suffering in my life, it's good enough. And we don't put further effort in. So there's even what you might call right contentment and wrong contentment. Your right contentment is contentment with the basics of life that you can find, the material things, contentment with the practice, the way of practice, the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the meditation techniques, the ways of practice we've learned. But we also have to have a certain discontent with defilements that are still lurking and hiding deep in our consciousness. Otherwise, everything grinds to a halt again. One sign of this, sometimes Dhamma practitioners, they reach a point, they've meditated a bit, they've done their dana, they keep precepts, they've learned the Dhamma, hear the talks, so they can talk about the Dhamma with their friends, and they feel they know enough. And then, rather than pursuing their practice a bit more, they spend more time telling others about the Dhamma. Most meditators will experience this at least sometimes, and some more than others, where you've had some peace, some happiness from your practice, and then you spend the rest of the time trying to convert others, tell others how good it is, impress upon others the importance of the Dhamma, but don't pursue the practice much more oneself. Monks have this problem, lay people has this problem. Luang Por Blien, you may have heard of, he's a very well respected teacher. He used to visit us regularly in Australia. He's a very kind monk, gave us lots of time. And very skilled with his samadhi. One time in private he said he could recollect his past lives. And he said in the time of the Buddha, he was a student of the monk Venerable Mahamoggallana. So Mahamoggallana, as you know, had great ability with samadhi, great psychic powers. He could fly through the sky, read people's minds, do all kinds of amazing things. And he was an arahant, of course. Luang Por Blien said he is a student of Mahamoggallana, but he had one, you might say, character fault, a more subtle character fault, in that he attained samadhi, became peaceful in his practiced meditation, but then he'd go out telling everyone else to come and listen to the Buddha teach. He'd stay in the monastery in the morning meditating, and then during the daytime he'd go out into the villages and towns encouraging people to go and listen to the Buddha for their own benefit. So out of compassion, he used his time well in that way, but he said it was actually a block in his personal meditation. He stopped pursuing his meditation and deepening his insight. So that insight, that recollection he gave to a monk who asked him why he didn't become enlightened. During that time he was living with a great teacher like Mahamoggallana. The monk asked him, why didn't you get enlightened? He said, well, I spent too much time teaching others and telling others to come and listen to the Buddha. So it's a more subtle thing, isn't it? You become peaceful and happy in your practice, but then you spend your time talking to others about the good of the Dhamma, spreading the Dhamma, and you no longer pursue your own practice. So contentment with what you've achieved, on the one hand, it is a quality that will come up that can be a sign of peace of mind. But then if it leads to inactivity, it can become an obstacle, something you have to review. Same with the bliss or the happiness of samadhi. Most of us are very attracted to the idea of a peaceful mind. You meditate and you attain a certain level of calm. You can sit for long periods of time without moving. Your mind calms down, your body is used to the posture, or you can walk meditation back and forth for a period of time. You're calm, you're content. There's a certain level of mindfulness and a certain level of piti and sukha. You feel happy. But then the mind just takes that as good enough. And there's no further investigation. Of course, we have to keep investigating to see where defilements are stimulated in our experience. Greed, anger, delusion, jealousy, worry, or some of the more subtle defilements, the conceit, sense of self, can form even around experiences of samadhi. So sometimes we have to make ourselves contemplate. It's not uncommon for a monk who's attained a bit of samadhi to actually have to force themselves not to use their samadhi, not to go to the meditation object just to calm the mind down, but actually to contemplate. Contemplation, investigation of the Dhamma is tiring. And that's one of the benefits of samadhi, is you can get a rest, get a holiday from the tiring energy using nature of investigation and contemplation. It drains you to contemplate impermanence in your body, in your feelings, thoughts, memories, and so on. To keep up with contemplation can be quite draining to the mind. So you go back to samadhi to get a rest and to re-energize. And that's a useful aspect of samadhi. But then because it's tiring, again, we shy away from effort. We don't want to contemplate. Maybe even we know what we have to contemplate. We've seen an attachment or some kind of craving that has been bothering us. We know what the problem is, vaguely, superficially, but we're lazy to contemplate. We see ourselves getting angry, irritated in different situations. We have some lust bothering us. We have some attachment to something we really like. And we're just not willing to investigate. We can make friends with mental defilements because they're just there anyway. We sort of say, well, that's me. I'm the one with all this greed. I'm the one with this anger. I have my worries. I'm a worrier. You kind of accept a certain habit of mind or a negative quality just because you've seen it so many times and it feels like, oh, maybe it's too hard to let go of this. But really it's a complacency. You might even say it's a kind of carelessness, because we could investigate more. Sometimes we have to set ourselves short-term goals in the practice, particularly to deal with a certain problem that's been lingering in the mind and in our consciousness for a long time. So you set yourself a goal. Well, if maybe even establish consequences. Say, if I speak in anger, if that's your problem, then you have a problem, you lose your temper, speak in anger. Then I knew one monk who made the rule: if I speak in anger, I'm not going to eat for the day. I just won't eat. I'll fast. So he became very mindful of the whole thing, because he knew he had a tendency to lose his temper, scold his friends, speak, with harsh words. So he'd just make himself go without food any time that happened. So day by day he changed his character. Another monk, he had his practice, he'd go on alms round. He said if he started looking at a village girl with lust, if he came across an attractive girl and he had a second look, he said, if you see somebody, well, you can't stop that. If you walk up close to someone, you see them. He said if he took a second look, indulged his lust, he'd turn around and walk back to the monastery. He'd teach himself not to indulge his lust, his desire. So sometimes you can be creative to get yourself out of sluggishness, complacency. You can be creative, you make your own rules, practices. Could be the same in your workplace. Say there's someone you're attracted to. Say you're already married or you've got a partner. And someone you're attracted to at work you meet in the course of your day. You could do the same. You say, well, I won't speak to this person. I won't text them. I won't speak to them. Because you're weak. You're attracted to them. And if you were to pursue a relationship with them, be inappropriate, so you just cut them off. Not out of any bad reasoning, but because you want to preserve your honesty with your own relationship, say. So you just cut them off. At first that might be difficult because you're attracted, you have desire. But you keep working at it, after a while it will get easier. The alternative is where you keep pursuing that person, you keep thinking of them, looking at them, finding excuses to talk to them. Well, of course, your attachment will grow. Another one, it could be just material things, like somebody said their partner was always offering to buy them a car, husband and wife, the car of their dreams, had enough money to do that. But they knew if they got the car of their dreams, it would become too much of attachment. So they never said yes, never gave in. And then one day the partner bought the car without them even asking. They just bought the car for them. And they never drove it. I'm never going to sit in that car, never going to drive it. To teach themselves to let go. Let the other person drive it. Sometimes we have to do things. We make little resolutions, little rules for ourselves because we're working on something rather than accepting everything, everything that comes your way, every pleasant thing, everything you like, rather than pursuing or following every desire. Sometimes you have to cut off desire to teach yourself, and your mind goes to a higher level, a level of equanimity towards desire. The things you're attracted to, the things you're averse to. Sometimes if you've noticed you're averse to a certain responsibility that you have in the home, in the workplace, in the monastery, that's something that limits you, you're always avoiding it, then you go and do that very thing, that job, that task, something you don't like to do, you make yourself do it until your mind accepts it and can be peaceful. Like for young monks, one of the things young monks in the monastery are averse to, they usually don't want to give Dhamma talks or teach because they're new and they feel they're learning, they're not the one to teach. Ajahn Chah used to help them a bit to overcome that fear or that loathing of teaching by making monks teach. Put them on the high seat, say, you give the Dhamma talk today. Put them in the hot spot until they got used to it and they could accept it. Sometimes the other way around. There's one monk I know, he wouldn't stop teaching. He wanted to tell everyone how good the Dhamma was and explain all the intricacies of what the Buddha had taught. He loved to teach. So he'd jump up onto the high seat at any moment. He'd even start teaching people out of turn, at times when he shouldn't be teaching, he'd start teaching. So Ajahn Chah sent him off to a really quiet little monastery where nobody visited, like a hermitage, where there's just one other old monk living there, and no one ever went there. So he got so frustrated, started talking to the trees. He's supposed to go and spend 3 months there, but he ended up coming back after a week. So I couldn't stand it. I didn't have anyone to talk to. So sometimes a teacher will help you go against the grain, go against the habits. But in the end, you've got to recognize your own habits, where you're becoming complacent, lazy, following habit but not being very mindful, or not doing anything concrete to abandon greed, anger and delusion. You've got to learn for yourself, don't you? Teach yourself, bring up more effort, more energy. There's always more we can do, But you have to see where to apply the effort and what you need to kind of tweak or adjust in your attitude and the way you do things. Chanting can be the same. A lot of people in the beginning of their practice, they're averse to chanting. They say, oh, chanting is for monastics, or chanting is Pali, it's the ancient language of the Buddha, nobody speaks it anymore. I don't find chanting very useful. I do vipassana and I sit and observe arising and passing away. Chanting's not for me. And true, it may not be for everyone, but I think more people I've heard have said that having been averse to chanting, then learning some chanting and actually pursuing chanting as a regular practice, they've gained lots of benefits that they didn't realize, they never expected. Chanting is quite good. Once you've learned a certain number of chants, you have like a set of tools that you can employ maybe when you're sleepy or when you're afraid or anxious. It gives you a certain confidence because it links you right to the Buddha and the words of the Buddha and reflections and teachings that came from the Buddha. And it's a way of meditating, very clear way of meditating. If you recite words of Pali, it cuts through whatever other thoughts are coming up in your mind. So you can use it at those times when it's difficult to keep your mind in check, when you're prey to some strong emotion, you can chant. Or just as a way to give your practice some structure, you chant and then you meditate afterwards. So sometimes we have to be willing to try things that maybe at first we think are no good for us. We're against them just in our view. Maybe you have to try and experiment. And of course, sometimes you experiment and things don't work out. It may not be the right practice for you, but at least you try and you learn that way. So part of the practice is reviewing the effort you put in, learning how to kind of lever yourself out of complacency sometimes, learning how to not get so fixated on results and time and when are you going to get the insight, when are you going to be free from suffering. Learn how to develop a balanced attitude to the practice according to your character, because everyone is different. Learn to see what you need to do and then keep applying the practice. So for this morning, maybe I'll just say this much, and for the rest of the period we can practice some quiet meditation.